If someone is struggling, how exactly can counsellors help with depression?
I suppose the first thing is people who are depressed are often feeling stuck. They're feeling alone. They quite often describe it as feeling like they're in some sort of black hole. And they don't feel they have many choices. So by going to see a counsellor, the counsellor can enable them to find those choices, to get them going again. And it's quite empowering, I think, because they often feel totally disempowered and they don't feel worthy of feeling good. So the counsellor can help them explore that and get back in touch with the strengths that they do have to enable them to feel better again.
And in terms of training for counselling, how specific is that?
Well, there are so many different options available these days. And that's the really good thing, because there's no one size fits all in terms of people. So some people like a very structured approach, so they may benefit from something called cognitive behavioural therapy, which is very task-oriented, of a behavioural programme. Some people don't like that at all. And so some people may prefer to make sense of things. I mean, I work in a way that's called relational, so particularly as a relationship therapist. So I will help people understand themselves in relation to other people, interpersonally, and enable them to connect with other people again in a possibly more healthy way. And that will help them feel better about themselves.
Have you seen a need or an increased need for counselling in regards to relationships?
Yeah, a lot of people feel that couple counselling isn't appropriate if one of them is depressed, for instance. Well, I disagree with that. I think there can be a place for it, depending on the severity of the depression, because it's a little bit chicken and egg, but certainly figuring out, is the depressed partner's symptoms impacting the quality of the relationship, or conversely, is it relationship issues that are causing the depression? And I think it's really important to figure that out. And I quite often work with couples where one partner is depressed, and it can be really helpful because often the partner who's depressed is closing down, they're switching off. Maybe they're not sharing things with their partner might be feeling bewildered, confused, hurt. It might trigger their insecurities. Basically, communication tends to suffer. So by talking through these things from both partners' perspective, it can be really helpful for both of them, but particularly for the depressed partner, because again, they may have been feeling they're going to be a burden. They don't want to saddle their partner with their worries. But in the meantime, their partner is feeling shut out. They're feeling confused. So sorting all of those aspects out can really be a stepping stone for the depressed partner to feel supported again, to feel it's okay to say it's not okay to their partner. And the relationship can then build and grow again.
Has there been an increase in demand for counselling services?
Yes, I think there's a huge demand now. And certainly I hear lots of tales of people going to see their GP, which is good, but then being told that there might be a long wait for them to see people through the health services over here, which is really unfortunate. But there are lots of forms of help out there now. Depression and anxiety have always been around. I think there's much less stigma now. I think there is still stigma, and I think that's one of the most difficult parts sometimes for depressed people, is they feel they may get judged. They feel guilty because they're not able to maybe manage things like they normally would have been able to manage them. But I think hopefully things are moving on and there is less stigma now, and that encourages people to seek the help. That can only be good.
So why is talking so important?
People who are depressed often are experiencing lots of negative thoughts. And alongside the negative thoughts, they're also experiencing lots of self-critical thoughts. By talking about these things, what can be really helpful is there's a kind of reframing can go on. So perspective can be brought back. The first thing is people can start to feel more kindly towards themselves. And I think also the talking therapy is really helpful in just freeing up choices so they're not being defined by the depression. You know, I quite like to externalise it. So I might say, what is it that you think enables depression to visit? How could we evict depression? So somebody's not defining themselves as a depression.
If someone's actually struggling to explain and put into words how they're feeling, how can you help?
Hopefully creatively. Lots of people aren't very verbal. I mean, it is very common with depression that people struggle to find the words. So certainly I think most counsellors these days would be working much more creatively. One of the things I would use possibly is, for instance, I have a basket of stones in my counselling room, lots of varying sizes, colours, pebbles I got from Castletown Beach. So we might use those. So I might say, pick the stone that represents you. And there'll be a lot of clues in the stone they pick. Quite often a depressed person might pick a very tiny stone, or a jagged stone, or a dark stone. And then we will pick out other people in their lives. I might then say, represent for me where you feel in relation to these other stones. And then we might look at, where do you want to be? And just by using the symbolism of the stones, it's a bit of a bridge to them to access, this is how I'm feeling, this is where I want to go. Most counsellors work creatively, and there's never any pressure. It's not like you're trying to force people to find the words. Some people just don't have the words. They're not verbal. Some people are very visual. I have a flip chart. I do something called mind mapping on the flip chart, which is a kind of diagrammatic form of helping people kind of access where they are, what's going on for them internally. So words are important, but they're not always necessary to enable the work to happen.
Should mental health care be a right or a privilege?
I think it should be a right. It's always been about the money, but I think it should be an absolute right. It's so important. It's what makes everything else work for us, isn't it?
Do people actually hesitate to get in touch with counsellors simply because there's a cost? Because not everybody can afford it, of course.
Sure, of course. This is the real world. Lots of people are struggling financially.
And how can people get around that?
Well, it's a difficult one. I think, firstly, people underestimate the help that family and friends can give. But I think if they can overcome that initial hesitation, family, friends, co-workers can really want to help and support. The online forums can be quite helpful. Looking up local charities. You know, I know Quing, I'll Listen over here on the island.
Is there a need for support networks?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think we can all work collaboratively and bring our different strengths. And that would be wonderful if we could collaborate more, I think. Things have changed so much. Historically, a whole village would rally if somebody wasn't well. And the close community networks often aren't there now. So people feel a lot more isolated, a lot more alone. And I think that forging networks, forging kind of modern communication networks, and that might be through, I don't know, all kinds of means, social media platforms or online forums, but if family and friends aren't available, it's accessing the other things now that might enable. It's all about connection. People thrive with good connection.
It can never be replaced by style. Prizes for all, meaningless win. When true value cannot be conceived, please take control of all that controls you. everything to you.